inch of snow is going to be on the ground in the Tanner's backyard in winter here. Well, whenever it falls. Could fall next week for all we know. But when do you think that snow is going to fall? Anybody want to give me a quick call or email before we go on break? I don't think I see anything. Let me grab a break. We'll be back and do the last few minutes of our show, Sunrise Live, for you in a bit.
Attention! If you have suffered severe health complications after hernia surgery, call Hernia Mesh Advocates now. Hernia repair surgery is simple and often requires a mesh product to be implanted inside your body. However, a popular mesh product has been linked to severe complications. And in May of 2016, the manufacturer of this product issued a voluntary global recall due to product defects. Call Hernia Mesh Advocates now.
Call 1-800-238-6434.
Your ATEC, your advantage. High school students, the programs at the Ashtabula County Technical and Career Campus can give you the competitive edge you need.
So I chose to go to college. I was way above the other students, and my professors saw that.
See your counselor to sign up for your showcase today, or call 440-576-6015, or visit atech.edu. Your ATEC, your advantage.
ATEC education for success.
What I like most about Greg Sweet is kindness.
People are talking about us, and we like what they're saying.
He always goes out of his way to make sure that everybody is happy and leaves with a smile on their face.
I shopped around, but I always find they have the best price at Greg Sweet.
I definitely save money at Greg Sweet.
Greg Sweet's my friend. I feel like he's really a friend.
Greg Sweet is number one.
At Greg Sweet Ford, we're gonna make your day.
We thought, what is the cost of doing more, of searching for ways we can help? What could it hurt to strive for better solutions whenever possible? To think ahead and be part of creating a healthier planet. And so that's why we're revealing the Defense Soap Shower Gel packaging, which uses 70% less plastic and has a self-sealing valve, which allows for drop-by-drop control for less waste and less mess. Defense Soap. Defend what you have built.
Alrighty, welcome back to our final few minutes here of Sunrise Live. Going to go off air in just a little bit. If you want to make those last couple of calls to get your say hello or to get your name on our snowfall contest, we can do that. Good morning. Welcome to the show.
Good morning.
Sharpie!
Nice pictures on there today. Some places where I used to go fishing.
Oh, yeah?
And one at Dibble Road, that bridge, that forge, you know, you could go across the creek.
Yeah.
That's got a bridge on top of that now. You can't go by that no more.
Oh, no?
Dibble Road.
Okay. You used to fish over there.
Yeah, that's right.
Very cool.
That's fun out in Colorado. Oh, the Bessie?
Yeah?
Yeah, well, that's going to dissipate. No more snow out of that.
Oh, my word. Yeah, the West has got some snow already, haven't they? Definitely. Hello?
Fire out west is real terrible, too.
Oh, the California fires, they got...
Red alert now.
Yeah,
Get out or else.
they've only got about 15% contained at this point.
Yeah, the big winds are coming today. That's terrible. Oh, that's so terrible you can't imagine.
Absolutely.
Even mansions are burning down now.
Yep, LeBron James got out of his house.
Eerie weather report now for tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, upper 60s.
Really?
I don't believe there'll be any snow involved, but it might have a lot of rain and
I think we're gonna get rain for Halloween Day, as far as I know. Yeah. I can't hear you, Sharp.
That it's coming from.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm hearing a little bit of static from you. You're right.
Yeah, I can hear it too.
Okay.
Oh, I don't know where it's coming from. Not by the TV.
All right, my friend.
Hang up, this is too bad.
Thank you, Sharp.
Okay, bye.
I don't know. Something was with his phone call there. I'm not sure exactly what happened on that, but thank you for the call. We're going to call it quits here for today. We'll pick up with our snowfall contest tomorrow on the show. Don't forget, I'm planning on being here at 7 o'clock in the morning for more Sunrise Live. If you'd like to join me, please do so. I'll post our pictures and some things tonight to remind you what's going on. Please follow us on our Facebook page, Sunrise Live with Jim. If you need me to get me any information to talk about on the program, you can do so by sending it to sunrise@greatwavecom.com. Well, from all of us here, all of me here at Sunrise Live today, I'll see you tomorrow at 7 o'clock. Make it a good day today, Conneaut. And until tomorrow, bye-bye for now.
Good evening. I'd like to call the Conneaut City Council meeting to order for October 28, 2019. And at this time, ask Ms. O'Connell to please call the roll.
City Manager, Mr. Hockaday.
Here.
Finance Director, Mr. Williams.
Here.
Law Director, Mr. Smith.
Here.
Council President, Mrs. Newcomb.
Present.
Mr. Emery.
Here.
Mr. Garrix.
Here.
Mr. Kozeski.
Here.
Mrs. McVoy.
Here.
Mr. Prokowski.
Present.
Mr. Shamford.
Present.
I'll ask y'all please stand and I comment before we do the Pledge of Allegiance. City Council would like to express its sincere condolences to Sergeant Thomas Cole Walker and the tragic accident that's occurred affecting his family and this community. We want to wish them well. We hope they get through this difficult time with the help of family and friends and everyone coming together. And at this time, we will pledge allegiance to the flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Our invocation this evening will be by Reverend Tim Krause.
Let's pray together. Dear God of heaven, we ask your blessings on our city, on city council, and all of our city leaders. We pray that this meeting would be productive and that there be ample discussion and responsible decisions made. We pray, Lord, that as we move forward as a city, that we can all pull in the same direction and that you will continue to bless us. And Father, we gather together with heavy hearts over the loss of one of our finest young men, Sergeant Thomas Cole Walker. Heavenly Father, I pray for his family and close friends. I especially ask your blessings on his wife, Taylor, that you would walk closely with her and help her through this time. Father, as we welcome him back home tomorrow, I pray that our city will come together in a showing of unity and compassion. And we are so grateful, Lord, for those who have served our country from this community and who are currently serving. We pray for your protection over them and that you would bring them home safely to us. These things we ask in the name of our Savior, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Reverend Krause. The next item on our agenda is the disposing of our meeting minutes for our meeting which was held on October 15th, 2019. Council received copies of that. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes as presented? Entertain a motion. Motion by Mr. Emery, seconded by Mr. Prokowski to approve the minutes. Ms. O'Connell?
Mr. Emery?
Yes.
Mr. Garrix?
Yes.
Mr. Kozeski?
Yes.
Mrs. McVoy?
Yes.
Mrs. Newcomb?
Yes.
Mr. Prokowski?
Yes.
Mr. Shamford?
Yes.
The meeting minutes stand approved. Next item on our agenda is our awards presentation. At this time, I would like Alex Kennedy and his family and his teachers here too, to please come forward for a presentation. Thank you. Congratulations. Ms. O'Connell has a presentation she'd like to read. You're on it.
Certificate of Achievement, Spartan of the Month. The Spartan of the Month for October is Alex Kennedy. Alex is a 10th grade student at Conneaut High School. His nominating teacher, Georgia Woods, wrote, Alex is a dedicated student who puts great effort into every assignment. He is attentive and pays attention to detail and strives to do his best. He is kind and considerate to his classmates and his teachers. He has a great attitude, works hard, always participates, and pays attention. I enjoy having him in my class. Alex exhibits those qualities that make him a representative of what it means to be a true Spartan. Signed, Deborah Newcomb, Council President, and Thomas Kozeski, Council Member. Thank you.
like to say who's with you here tonight?
This is my father, Jim Kennedy, my mom, Jessica Kennedy, my sister, Addie, and my sister and principal, Miss Sanford. Right?
Right. At this time, we have something for you from City Council, and this is Tom Kozeski.
Congratulations in recognition of everything you've achieved as a local city council.
Thank you.
You don't have to share it with mom and dad. Okay. Very proud of you and your parents, and appreciate you being here this evening. Another great example of Spartan spirit here in council chambers. So at this time, I'd like you to shake hands with all the council members so they can congratulate you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Thanks for being here. When I saw him, like a little mini Jamie. Congratulations. And thank you again. That's the more fun part of our agenda. Awarding students. Next item on our agenda is audience comments. Mr. Smith, did anyone sign in to comment?
Nope.
Okay, thank you. Move on to communications. Ms. O'Connell, do you have any communications be read in the record?
No, I do not.
Do any members of council have any communications? Move on to the reports of our administration and start with our city manager, Jim Hockaday.
Thank you, Madam President. Couple items I want to update you on. I've been receiving final departmental budgets. Hopefully we'll have a draft budget here for you in about the next week or two for a preliminary review. The other thing I want to touch base on here is the Land Bank Community Survey. We did our housing survey. Approximately a little over 6,000 parcels within the city of Conneaut. We had a great core of volunteers from all over our community, including land bank staff, our public library, the Conneaut Foundation, others. We used some in-house housing and zoning staff to assist with it as well. We're hoping that by mid-December we will actually have a finished product that we'll be able to come show to council and everybody else and kind of show you what we can do with some of this data and how it will help our community get better in the future. Really great project. To give a lot of credit to Eddie Eckert at the Land Bank for spearheading this, and the direct costs were paid for by the Conneaut Foundation. So great project, and I really look forward to being able to present some of the final results there. CDFA presentation, just to let you know, the city of Conneaut was awarded an opportunity zone in 2018. There were only 2 opportunity zones in the entire county. We developed a prospectus. Our Economic Development Committee has seen that prospectus. We are actually going to be presenting that at the National CDFA Opportunity Zone Conference, not this week, but the following week. Very happy to do that. Really exciting. I'm going to be working with the Insight Group. We went over our final presentation today for that, and I'm excited, and hopefully it'll attract some interest to our community. Pierce Road and Pierce and Chamberlain Road. Couple of different things that I want to update you there with. For the most part, the concrete work is substantially complete. It's nice that they have it open back up. We had a issue with a contractor that's going to be providing the upright poles that hold the new traffic signals. So in order to get the road reopened, we simply put the old signals back up. For a temporary basis, so those are not staying. That's just so we can get the road open to traffic. So there's some new lining and striping configuration that's probably 3/4 done. We have arrows and other things that still need to go down But once I have a final timeline for the poles that hold the new signals, I'll let council know. But our goal has been to close this project by the end of this year. So they're going to be doing their final cleanup, grading, punch list pieces with the exception of those uprights. So that's the status on that.
Jim, could you give a quick explanation of the change of the lanes?
Yes. So the biggest issue with Route 20 West is it's in a 4-lane configuration, but it's actually too narrow to be 4 lanes. Some of those lanes are 9 feet in width. ODOT standard is 14 feet. So that is way too narrow for that. ODOT has consistently requested that we downsize that. It is lower traffic. It's not even the highest traffic portion of 20. The highest traffic portion of 20 is right here on State Street near Broad. That's almost 3,000 or 4,000 cars per day more than the west end. And this is a 2-lane or 3-lane configuration up here as well. So it's not really a congestion issue. Truck turning radius, which obviously was a massive issue in that intersection, even with it being widened, by bringing it into a 3-lane configuration, it pulls those truck bodies off the curb so they can make those turns. So that's the reason for the configuration. ODOT has consistently requested that we downsize 20 West as we go through and do some replacement. So likely you will see as we go through that will turn into a 3-lane configuration rather than a 4-lane configuration. In fact, when I think anybody that's driven that street, when you never see cars riding side by side, they'll always stagger themselves, and it's because the lanes are too narrow. A minimum of 12 feet, recommended 14 feet, and we have 9 and 10 foot lanes out there. So that's not really acceptable without us purchasing more right of way and widening the physical road bed all the way out, which would be tens and tens and tens of millions of dollars. That's not really within reality, nor is it really necessary. There's not traffic that would justify that kind of expansion.
Okay, thank you.
CDBG, this is the water lining project. So council awarded it. The contracts have gone out to the contractor. Once they fill out the complete piece, the county will actually go through the CDBG Critical Infrastructure Award. We're trying to get on the agenda for this week so they can do that and we can actually start our project. These are 90% of the construction funds are coming through the state of Ohio through Community Development Block Grant Critical Infrastructure dollars. So that will be awarded at the county level as well. So we've done our part. We're waiting on the contractor in the county, and then that project will get underway. And then before you tonight, you have the waterfront RFP. This is a development MOU. And that memorandum of understanding, a couple things I would make clear is it puts several items of kind of mutual understanding between the city and the developer as to who's responsible for what. It also establishes timelines and all those things. However, I will say it is non-binding, so council doesn't necessarily have to pass this to be authorized, but I think it's a good thing to put out there in the light of day. We can go through some of those. You don't have to pass it tonight if you do not want. You can put it in a second reading if you so choose. But again, it's a non-binding memorandum of understanding of who's responsible for financing, who's responsible for the public utility realignment, so on and so forth, and it hashes out many of those things and then establishes a timeline for each of those processes. It also establishes 180 days for a final development agreement between the city and Renew, and it can be extended by mutual agreement. So that's something for you to review and look at. If you want to put it in a second reading, that's entirely your choice. Okay. Lake Road Stormwater, our bids came back. There is a bid summary attached. We did have multiple bidders. They were kind of up and down, a little bit all over the place. We had 2 or 3 bids within projected budget that were acceptable. The low bid was $196,000 with Severino Construction. So you can see the recommendation from CT Consultants attached. and you can look at that for your review. I would hope that we could award this project and move forward. This is one kind of dragging a little bit behind, but I would like to see it move forward in a timely fashion. It is within the opinion of probable cost. Even with all the alternates selected, it is below the base cost, construction cost of $212. So it came in at about $196,000 with all the alternates selected. So we did get a good bid, and we had Rudzik, Woodford, and Trimore also bidding on that. So you can see the final breakdown there. Let's see. The last thing I wanted to include is water filtration and distribution. I included a report that is the intake crib inspection report from back in September. And I know this is something that we've had to do some significant work on in the past. We've kept up with it. We did crib repairs, I believe, 2 years ago, and just keeping it in good order and repair. Essentially, what you can see is the final conclusion. The overall condition of the entire crib structure is very good at this time, and no repairs are required. This is a big expense item for us, so I just want to make sure that we're keeping up with it. We did pull in a new permanganate line this year, which helps us treat harmful algal blooms and other things. So we inject permanganate at the intake for the additional contact time. So that was something in this year's capital budget that's already been completed. But I just wanted to share that with council so you have a good idea of where it's at. And that is all I have, unless there are any questions from council.
Any questions, council members, at this time? Okay, thank you, Mr. Hockaday. Move on to the report of our finance director, Mr. Williams.
Mrs. Dinkler, I have no report this evening.
Report of our law director, Mr. Smith.
I have no report either.
You guys, okay. Thank you. Thought for sure you'd have a report tonight. Okay, we'll move on to reports of our standing committees. Are there any standing committee reports? I know we had to reschedule economic development.
Yeah, we did have that meeting.
Did have that meeting,
Yeah.
okay. Just document the record then.
Yeah, it was just, we had an economic meeting on October the 21st. City Manager Hockaday and Councilman Nick Sanford, myself, I called in via phone because I misstated the appointment. We just kind of reviewed Truck World, the progress there, and also the waterfront, and then the pipeline. So it just kind of reviews what was going on.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. McBoy. Any other reports? Any reports of special committees, liaison reports? Mr. Prokowski.
Just to announce that there's a joint meeting with City Council and the School Board on November 4th, right after our regular work session, so around 6:15.
Okay. Thank you. No other reports? Okay, we'll move on to the assignment of ordinances and resolutions before council this evening. We have ordinance number 61-19 that's on the table, introduced by Mr. Emery. We do not have any ordinances or resolutions in third or second reading, and we'll move on to those that are in first reading this evening. Resolution number 80-19 will be introduced by Mr. Prokowski. Ordinance number 81-19 will be introduced by Mr. Sanford. Resolution number 82-19 will be introduced by Mr. Emery. Ordinance number 83-19 will be introduced by Mr. Garrix. Ordinance number 84-19 will be introduced by Mr. Kozeski. And ordinance number 85-19 will be introduced by Mrs. McFoy. And our final ordinance this evening, ordinance number 86-19, will be introduced by Mr. Prokowski. So beginning with the first ordinance that's on the table, and that's ordinance number 61-19. Ms. O'Connell?
Declaring improvements to real property within the city to a public purpose, declaring certain improvements to be exempt from real property taxation, describing the public improvements to be made that will directly benefit the parcels of real property, requiring the owners of the real property to make service payments in lieu of ad valorem real property taxes and minimum service payments, if any, authorizing the city manager to enter into a tax increment financing agreement with the property owner, establishing a municipal public improvement tax increment equivalent fund for the deposit of service payments, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Smith, is the amendment included in
So what
this
you
copy?
had last time was an ordinance that said amended at the top. And so and what got amended here was this, used to be a 30-year TIF agreement where the property taxes would be used to pay the public improvements for 30 years. That's been shrunk down to 20 years.
Okay.
And that's mainly the main change.
Okay.
That's what it is, and we need to amend this, or to accept the amendment as drafted, suspend the 3 reading rule, and then the emergency, and then pass it.
Okay.
The other noted changes there is it also includes a compensation agreement between the cities and the schools.
Oh,
So on the income tax for taxable income generated on the parcels listed in the TIF agreement, it would allow the city to collect the income tax up to $500,000, well, $500,000 of reported income tax. Above that, we will then split that between the 2 school districts, which is ATEC and the Conneaut Area City Schools. And then that is an effort to make sure that, this doesn't have a deleterious impact on the school district. So.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Emery?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the amendment on ordinance 61-19.
Do you have to remove it from the table first?
Yes. I'd like to remove ordinance 61-19 from the table.
Motion by Mr. Emery, seconded by Mr. Kozeski, to move ordinance number 61-19 off the table. Ms. O'Connell?
Mr. Emery?
Yes.
Mr. Garrix?
Yes.
Mr. Kozowski? Mrs. McVoy?
Yes.
Mrs. Newcomb?
Yes.
Mr. Prokowski?
Yes.
Mr. Shanford?
Yes.
Mr. Emery, the ordinance is off the table.
I'd like to motion to accept the amendment to ordinance 61-19.
Motion to accept the amendment as presented by Mr. Smith and Mr. Hockaday, seconded by Mr. Prokowski.
Mr. Emery?
Yes.
Sorry, Mr. Garrix?
Yes.
Mr. Kozowski?
Yes.
Mrs. McVoy?
Yes.
Mrs. Newcomb?
Yes.
Mr. Prokowski?
Yes.
Mr. Shanford?
Yes.
Mr. Emery, the amendment has been approved.
I'd like to declare ordinance 61-19 an emergency. Oh, excuse me. Sorry, I would like to suspend the 3 reading rule on ordinance 61-19.
Well, it said declare an emergency, so if it goes back to first reading?
Yeah. It goes back to second.
Take it back, just suspend the 3 reading rule and take care of the emergency.
Okay, all right. Got that, just suspend.
So motion to suspend the 3 reading rule.
Motion by Mr. Emery, seconded by Mr. Kozeski to suspend the 3 reading rule. Ms. O'Connell?
Mr. Emery?
Yes.
Mr. Garrix?
Yes.
Mr. Kozowski?
Yes.
Mrs. McVoy?
Yes.
Mrs. Newcomb?
Yes.
Mr. Prokowski?
Yes.
Mr. Shanford?
Yes.
Mr. Emery, the 3 reading rule has been suspended.
The motion to act on ordinance 61-19.
Motion by Mr. Emery, seconded by...
That'd be the
I just asked.
Just, yeah.
Emergency, then adopt.
I'm sorry, I said suspend the 3 reading rule, do the emergency, and then adopt.
Oh, okay. We usually do the emergency first.
Usually.
No, there needs to be an emergency.
Okay, sorry.
That's why I did the emergency first, because it's
Yeah, we
always
usually have
been...
All right, excuse me.
Yeah, that's okay.
Catch all that? Yeah, motion to declare ordinance 61-19 emergency.
Motion by Mr. Emery, seconded by Mr. Garrix to declare an emergency on the ordinance.
Mr. Emery?
Yes.
Mr. Garrix?
Yes.
Mr. Kozowski?
Yes.
Mrs. McVoy?
Yes.
Mrs. Newcomb?
Yes.
Mr. Prokowski?
Yes.
Mr. Shanford?
Yes.
The emergency has been declared, the 3 reading rule has been waived. Mr. Emery.
I motion to act on 61-19.
Motion to act on ordinance number 61-19, seconded by Mrs. McVoy. Are there any more comments or questions before we proceed? Okay. Ms. O'Connell?
Mr. Emery?
Yes.
Mr. Garrix?
Yes.
Mr. Kozowski?
Yes.
Mrs. McVoy?
Yes.
Mrs. Newcomb?
Yes.
Mr. Prokowski?
Yes.
Mr. Sanford?
Yes.
Ordinance number 61-19 is passed. I want to thank the city manager and all three of you for getting this ordinance completed and the school board for working in collaboration in its passage.
Both school districts did a lot, and appreciate Lori Riley and Dr. Brockway's efforts on this. They worked very hard and were very patient through the entire process.
Good, good. Thank you. Okay, we have no ordinances third and second reading. We'll move to first reading, where we have resolution number 80-19, introduced by Mr. Prokowski.
A resolution declaring October 28th through November 1st, 2019 Red Ribbon Week in the city of Conneaut.
Do you need an explanation? Anyone? We do this every year for Red Ribbon Week, and we didn't wear our red ribbons. Okay. But would like the resolution, Mr. Prokowski.
Wait, the 3 reading rule?
I don't know. Ask Mr. Smith at this time. I'm doubting my abilities to. Okay.
Okay, I move to waive the 3 reading rule for resolution 80-19.
Motion by Mr. Prokowski, seconded by Mr. Sanford to waive the 3 reading rule. Ms. O'Connell?
Mr. Prokowski?
Yes.
Mr. Sanford?
Yes.
Mr. Emery?
Yes.
Mr. Garrix?
Yes.
Mr. Kozowski?
Yes.
Mrs. McVoy?
Yes.
Mrs. Newcomb?
Yes. Mr. Prokowski, the 3 reading rule has been suspended.
I'd like to move to act on resolution 80-19.
Motion to act on the ordinance, seconded by Mrs. McVoy. Ms. O'Connell, would you call the roll?
Mr. Prokowski?
Yes.
Mr. Sanford?
Yes.
Mr. Emery?
Yes.
Mr. Garrix?
Yes.
Mr. Kozowski?
Yes.
Mrs. McVoy?
Yes.
Mrs. Newcomb?
Yes. Resolution number 80-19 has passed. Next is ordinance number 81-19, introduced by Mr. Sanford.
An ordinance to establish a maximum vacation payout and year-to-year carryover limit for all full-time unclassified employees at the time of retirement or separation from service and not declaring an emergency.
Mr. Hockaday?
This can go to a second reading. Obviously, this is something I think we ought to take all 3 readings. Essentially, as the title suggests, for those people who are in unclassified service with the city, so this would largely be administrative assistants that are not part of collective bargaining units within the city of Conneaut. This would cap their maximum payout that they could take on accrued vacation at 400 hours. This is very similar to the same caps that are across the board in all the classified collective bargaining agreements, is that 400 hours. Fire department's a little different, but that's because their hours per week are a little bit different in general and how they accrue time with the city based on their schedules. It also, the one change that would be notable is it also caps that carryover year to year. So that's important as well, because otherwise we're going to end up in the same boat as we had before if we don't cap the year-to-year overage. And it does also notate that if there's anybody that's currently in exceedance of 400 hours, that is their cap, and they can never go above what they currently hold. If they drop down below 400, then 400 is their cap. So again, this is something that can go into a second reading and go all 3 readings. But I think it's only fair, and I think it's financially responsible to put a cap on those. We've had big retirement payouts in the past, and I think that needs to be something that's in the past.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Sanford?
At the recommendation of the city manager, I would like to move this ordinance to a second reading.
Ordinance number 81-19 has been moved to a second reading. Next is resolution number 82-19, introduced by Mr. Emery.
Is for the resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with ODOT for the bridge inspection program and declaring an emergency.
This has to be reauthorized from time to time with ODOT. They inspect our bridges, our ODOT bridges that are under municipal coverage at no cost to the city. But we do have to opt into the program. Obviously, they generate a rating, a structure rating for those bridges, make sure they're safe, and then if they do start to show wear and tear, it grades that wear and tear and when kind of repair, restructuring needs to occur on those bridges. So it's a great program, and appreciate ODOT doing this, because there were some 20 years ago this didn't occur, and there were some pretty catastrophic bridge failures around the country, and I think ODOT's taken this very head on, and our bridges are in good shape.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Emery?
I'd like to declare Resolution 82-19 an emergency.
A resolution or?
It's a resolution.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
This is another resolution with ODOT. Does it have to be an emergency? Just waive. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I don't know why you're getting all these tonight, but.
If you want the emergency, you can do that too.
I would like to waive the 3 reading rule on Resolution 82-19.
Motion by Mr. Emery, seconded by Mr. Sanford to waive the 3 reading rule. Ms. O'Connell?
Mr. Emery?
Yes.
Mr. Garrick?
Yes.
Mr. Kozowski? Mrs. McVoy?
Yes.
Mrs. Newcomb?
Yes.
Mr. Prokowski?
Yes.
Mr. Shamford?
Yes.
Mr. Emery, the 3 reading rule has been suspended.
Motion to act on Resolution 82-19.
Motion by Mr. Emery, seconded by Mr. Garrick to act on the ordinance. Are there any comments or questions? Ms. O'Connell?
Mr. Emery?
Yes.
Mr. Garrick?
Yes.
Mr. Kozowski?
Yes.
Mrs. McVoy?
Yes.
Mrs. Newcomb?
Yes.
Mr. Prokowski?
Yes.
Mr. Shamford?
Yes.
Resolution number 82-19 has passed. Move on to ordinance number 83-19, which will be introduced by Mr. Garrix.
An ordinance authorizing the city manager to apply for and accept the Northeast Ohio Public Energy Council, NOPEC, Energized Community Grant and declaring an emergency.
This is the second year of a 3-year grant program with NOPEC. As we discussed at prior council meetings, that this will go to assist with the gas taps that are being placed on the Reesburg pipeline that will be under the city's control. We need to authorize this tonight to accept this year's money. So if we could, I'd like to have it passed tonight. This just authorizes me to enter into that grant agreement.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Garrix?
Can I ask a question before
Certainly.
I do the emergency and the 3 reading rule?
Yes.
Has the money already been awarded, because we're at the end of the year?
Yes.
It says 2019, so the money's already been awarded, we're just passing this to accept it?
You were accepting the money, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so you were guaranteed in 2018 a 3-year commitment, but you have to actively accept the money.
Okay.
This is us just saying we're accepting the money.
Okay, that's fine.
Mr. Garrix?
Okay. Make a motion to declare 8319 an emergency.
Motion by Mr. Garrix, seconded by Mr. Sanford to declare an emergency.
Mr. Garrick?
Yes.
Mr. Kozowski?
Yes.
Mrs. McVoy?
Yes.
Mrs. Newcomb?
Yes.
Mr. Prokowski?
Yes.
Mr. Shamford?
Yes.
Mr. Emery?
Yes.
Mr. Garrix, the emergency has been declared.
Make a motion to waive the 3 reading rule on 83-19.
Motion to waive the 3 reading rule, seconded by Mr. Prokowski.
Mr. Garrick?
Yes.
Mr. Kozowski?
Yes.
Mrs. McVoy?
Yes.
Mrs. Newcomb?
Yes.
Mr. Prokowski?
Yes.
Mr. Shamford?
Yes.
Mr. Emery?
Yes.
Mr. Garrix, the 3 reading rule has been suspended.
Make a motion to act on ordinance 83-19.
Motion by Mr. Garrix, seconded by Mr. Kozowski to act on the ordinance. Are there any further comments or questions before we proceed? Ms. O'Connell?
Mr. Garrick?
Yes.
Mr. Kozowski?
Yes.
Mrs. McVoy?
Yes.
Mrs. Newcomb?
Yes.
Mr. Prokowski?
Yes.
Mr. Shamford?
Yes.
Mr. Emery?
Yes.
83-19 has been approved. Move on to ordinance number 84-19, which will be introduced by Mr. Kozeski.
An ordinance to authorize the city manager to award the bid and enter into contract with J. Severino Construction Company, Inc. for the Lake Road Storm Sewer Project not to exceed a total of $196,165.59 and declaring an emergency.
Yeah, this is Lake Road Stormwater Project in general. It's funded in 50% part by Ohio Public Works Commission dollars. This will replace an outfall that crosses a private easement on a piece of property, and it'll route it east along Lake Road into a public culvert drainage basin to Lake Erie. And then that will eliminate that public obligation on that piece of property. This is something that we've been talking about since I've been here. I know this is something that's been a problem for probably 15 to 20 years. We've had several outfalls that go along this property, and it's been reconstructed several times. This is a little bit different in the sense that we're going to redirect it completely off this property, so we no longer have issues with the property owner, who's been very patient with us in terms of getting this project out the door. So we would like to get that awarded, and it will rehab the private piece of line that goes down over it, and then it will abandon any public interaction with it. And then all that water from the Lake Road area will drain east into that public culvert. So that's the plan for this project, and happy to answer any questions.
It was on our capital list for this year.
It was, and this is an OPWC project. I believe total project cost was $260,000. John, do you remember the OPWC total for Lake Road Stormwater? I think it was about $130,000. Yeah, $130,000 in grant. So.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Kozeski?
I'd like to declare ordinance 84-19 an emergency.
Motion by Mr. Kozeski, seconded by Mr. Emery to declare an emergency. Ms. O'Connell?
Mr. Kozeski?
Yes.
Mrs. McBoyd? Yes. Mrs. Newcomb?
Yes.
Mr. Prokowski?
Yes.
Mr. Shamford?
Yes.
Mr. Emery?
Yes.
Mr. Garrett?
Yes.
Mr. Kozeski, the emergency has been declared.
I make a motion to waive the 3 reading rule on 84-19.
Motion by Mr. Kozeski, seconded by Mr. Garrett to waive the 3 reading rule.
Mr. Kozeski?
Yes.
Mrs. McBoyd? Yes. Mrs. Newcomb?
Yes.
Mr. Prokowski?
Yes.
Mr. Shamford?
Yes.
Mr. Emery?
Yes.
Mr. Garrett?
Yes.
Mr. Kozeski, the 3 reading rule has been suspended.
I make a motion to act on 84-19.
Motion by Mr. Kozeski to act, seconded by Mr. Prokowski. Ms. O'Connell?
Mr. Kozeski?
Yes.
Mrs. McBoyd? Yes. Mrs. Newcomb?
Yes.
Mr. Prokowski?
Yes.
Mr. Shamford?
Yes.
Mr. Emery?
Yes.
Mr. Garrett?
Yes.
Ordinance number 84-19 has passed. Move on to ordinance number 85-19 this evening, which is introduced by Mrs. McBoyd.
An ordinance to authorize the city manager to enter into a memorandum of understanding with Renew Partners LLC for the development of a boutique hotel facility and not declaring an emergency.
Well,
Like you said, this is more like a memorandum of understanding. It's not binding, and
yes, that's correct. So, a couple things that it does is it outlines kind of our parameters for moving forward towards a final development agreement that would be binding. You can see that there's an anticipated timeline starting in December 1st of this year, which is identify and apply for funding sources, total estimated costs. March 1st of 2020, submission to Planning Commission for approval of site plans. April 1st, funding sources confirmed. May 1st, city review and approval of final building plans and a tentative lease agreement between the city and a developer. June of 2020, obtaining permits, and July of 2020, beginning earthwork and some preliminary construction pieces. So that's a very aggressive timeline.
it is, and that's why I wanted
Yes.
to make that statement about it not being binding to council. It just gives you an ability to move forward with further negotiations, and I hate to, just my personal opinion, delay that, because we've been working on this a long time.
And I'd like to thank Mr. Smith, who's attended numerous meetings now with the developer to come up with this and kind of establish some baseline parameters. Even here, you can kind of see the city's position on a number of issues related to this project. Under redevelopment, financing, and design, Part 3, the developer shall be solely responsible for the development and financing of the hotel. They're responsible and shall seek approval and input for the city on the design of the hotel and shall comply with all zoning regulations, et cetera, et cetera. So we're kind of articulating what this process will look for. Obviously, the city anticipates participating in incentive programs and other things to, obviously promote this facility, and we have a vested interest in it being a success as well. So you can kind of see what those things are. I would say one of the more important things in their liability insurance, we allow them to file a $4 million policy with us until such time construction begins, and then it jumps up to a $10 million policy that they have to keep on file with us. So, they've already had folks out to site to kind of start reviewing the site and start their preliminary site plans for construction and so on and so forth. So, they've showed a lot of great effort, and they continue to work hard in this project. So, even though this is a little bit ceremonial in scope, we want to get this out there so everybody can see it, and including council, that this is kind of the way we're working towards this project.
It's a very optimistic timeline, but I know you can do it. Thank you, Mr. Hockaday. And Mr. Smith. Mrs. McVoy.
I do have a quick question. This is declaring not an emergency. Shouldn't we declare an emergency to move this a little faster? I mean, this is a project that we've all been discussing and we've all been aware of.
I included it just not as an emergency because it's basically a non-binding agreement. If you want to call it an emergency, you can, but that was my reasoning.
Okay. So we could declare it as an emergency to get the expedition going. I mean, delaying the project doesn't seem to be beneficial for any parties in this process. Fine. So at this time, I'd like to make a motion to declare an emergency on ordinance 85-19.
Motion by Mrs. McVoy, seconded by Mr. Emery, to declare an emergency on 85-19.
McVoy?
Yes.
Mrs. Newcomb?
Yes.
Mr. Prokowski?
Yes.
Mr. Shamford?
Yes.
Mr. Emery?
Yes.
Mr. Garrix?
Yes.
Mr. Kozowski?
Yes.
Mrs. McVoy, emergency has been declared.
At this time, I'd like to waive the 3 reading rule on ordinance 85-19.
Motion by Mrs. McVoy, seconded by Mr. Prokowski, to waive the 3 reading rule. Ms. O'Connell?
Mrs. McVoy?
Yes.
Mrs. Newcomb?
Yes.
Mr. Prokowski?
Yes.
Mr. Shamford?
Yes.
Mr. Emery?
Yes.
Mr. Garrix?
Yes.
Mr. Kozowski?
Yes.
Mrs. McVoy, the 3 reading rule has been suspended.
At this time, I'd like to make a motion to act on ordinance 85-19.
Okay, motion to act on the ordinance by Mrs. McVoy, seconded by Mr. Sanford. Any other comments or questions? Okay. Move forward.
Mrs. McVoy?
Yes.
Mrs. Newcomb?
Yes.
Mr. Prokowski?
Yes.
Mr. Shamford?
Yes.
Mr. Emery?
Yes.
Mr. Garrix?
Yes.
Mr. Kozowski?
Ordinance number 85-19 has been approved. Our final ordinance this evening is 86-19, introduced by Mr. Prokowski.
An ordinance to authorize the city manager to enter into the Healthy Lake Erie Grant Agreement with the Ohio Department of Natural Resources for the purpose of providing funds to the city for the Healthy Lake Erie Initiative Conneaut Sediment Processing and Retention Facility Project and not declaring an emergency.
That's saying quite a bit.
So I'm asking that you just place this on a second reading.
Okay.
We have an executive session scheduled for after this to discuss some of the lease issues. But I think we need to get this on the rails and moving forward. I think we have an obligation to keep this project moving forward, and we've made progress. It just, sometimes it's slower than anyone would hope. So.
Okay. Mr. Prokowski.
I'd like to move ordinance 86-19 into a second reading.
Ordinance number 86-19 will be moved to a second reading. Any other unfinished business or miscellaneous business to be brought before council this evening? Mr. Kozeski? No? Mr. Emery? Mr. Sanford?
No.
Mr. Garrix?
No.
Mrs. McBoy?
No.
Mr. Prokowski?
No.
Thank you all. This time we entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss the purchase, sale, or lease of real estate. Motion by Mr. Prokowski, seconded by Mr. Sanford. Ms. O'Connell, would you call the roll?
Mr. Emery?
Yes.
Mr. Garrix?
Yes.
Mr. Kozeski?
Yes.
Mrs. McBoyd?
Yes.
Mrs. Newcomb?
Yes.
Mr. Prokowski?
Yes.
Mr. Sanford?
Yes.
Conneaut City Council, the executive session has been approved. Conneaut City Council will be in executive session. We will come back to adjourn the meeting after we've completed our session.
Hi, I'm Martha Sorahan, editor of The Courier, bringing you Conneaut's hometown happenings for the week of October 30th, 2019. It's Halloween week and Red Ribbon Week in Conneaut. Conneaut schools and businesses are observing Red Ribbon Week, which brings awareness of the opioid crisis in the community. But on Tuesday, the school community wore red, white, and blue in honor and memory of 22-year-old Sergeant Thomas Cole Walker, who was killed October 20th in a training accident at Fort Stewart, Georgia. The accident took place during overnight hours while Walker was training for deployment to the Middle East in February. He and his wife Taylor, also of Conneaut, were married last May. Walker's body was to arrive at Cleveland Hopkins Airport at 8:20 p.m. on Tuesday evening, October 29th, and be escorted back to Conneaut, arriving at Marcy Funeral Home around 10 p.m. To encourage the community to welcome Walker home, Conneaut Area City Schools Superintendent Lori Riley delayed classes by 2 hours on Wednesday morning, October 30th. She said she wanted everyone, students, staff, bus drivers, and more, to be able to welcome Walker home. She said Walker had been a Conneaut student and he had touched many lives. Riley also organized a candlelight vigil for 4:45 p.m. Sunday, November 3rd at Jocelyn Field. Plans were not firm by airtime, but Riley has ordered 1,000 candles for the stadium. The stadium will open at 4 p.m. for what Riley anticipates will be a 30-minute ceremony. Walker's funeral with full military honors is scheduled for 2 p.m. Saturday, November 2nd, at New Leaf Event Center at 110 Gateway Avenue. Calling hours are Friday, November 1st from 2 to 4 p.m. and 6 to 9 p.m., as well as noon to 2 p.m. on Saturday before the funeral. All of those calling hours are at New Leaf. And the flying of, at half-staff that is, of American and state flags in Ashtabula County and some state office buildings in Columbus will come to an end Saturday night. Matt Crawford, director of the Outdoor Learning Center, plans to rename the Veterans Memorial Outdoor Amphitheater at the Outdoor Learning Center to the Sergeant Thomas Cole Walker Outdoor Amphitheater. A ceremony time will be announced soon, and over in Jefferson on Monday, Jefferson High School students wore Conneaut Spirit gear in honor of Walker. Conneaut's Lakefront Boutique Hotel plans took another step forward on Monday when Conneaut City Council approved a memorandum of understanding between the city and Renew Partners LLC, the developer who will plan and construct the hotel at the former Lakeview Park. The timeline is aggressive, with proposed construction to begin next July 1st and hotel occupancy by March 1st, 2022, or 18 months after building plans are approved. But City Manager Jim Hockaday pointed out that that agreement is non-binding. He told City Council at its October 28th meeting the council could move the ordinance with that legislation to a second reading, the ordinance approving the memorandum however, was passed as emergency legislation after Councilwoman Angel McVoy said time is of the essence. Conneaut City Council also moved to a second reading an ordinance that would cap unused vacation hours of unclassified city workers to 400. The city seeks the legislation so that it is not saddled with paying these employees for months and months of vacation time that they never took while employed. The new legislation's vacation time limits are identical to those of city employees who are union members. With Election Day on November 5th, right around the corner, Conneaut voters are being asked to say yes to 3 levies locally. The first, Issue 30, is a 5-year, $1.5 million permanent improvement, or PI, renewal levy for the Conneaut area city schools. This levy funds buses, books, buildings, and technology, things with a lifespan of at least 5 years. It does not go for operating expenses. Issue 41 is a new levy for the Conneaut Fire Department EMS. It is a $3 million continuous levy, which means it will never again be up for renewal. It replaces a $1.5 million levy. If passed, the levy will fund the salaries of 3 more firefighters, 1 for each of the 3 shifts during a 24-hour period, so that 4 firefighters are assigned each shift. Because 2 firefighters or EMTs are required to respond to a call and transport patients by ambulance to a hospital, having 4 firefighters per shift means the Conneaut Fire Department will be able to respond to 2 calls simultaneously. Without that 4th firefighter or EMT, the fire department must rely on mutual aid from a neighboring department if a second call comes in at the same shift. If passed, the levy will cost the owner of a $100,000 home about $8.75 per month, or $4.50 additional each month, since the current levy expiring is half that amount. The third levy, Issue 31, is a $1 million permanent improvement levy to enable Conneaut Township Park to construct a new concession stand, bathhouse, and restroom at the east end of the lower pavilion. The new facilities would replace the original 80-year-old facilities. If the levy passes, owners of a $100,000 home would pay about $3 per month. If all 3 levies pass, Conneaut homeowners of $100,000 homes would be paying about $10 more each month. Faces at the Conneaut Area City Schools Board of Education will not change with this election. Although 3 seats are up, incumbents Joe Norton, Suzanne Bernardini, and Chris Bartone are not being challenged in their bids for re-election. Conneaut City Council members are not being challenged either. Retaining their seats will be Angel McVoy, Joe Emery, and Tom Kozeski. New to City Council will be Ward 1, Richard Gaw, Ward 2, Terry Moisio, and at large will be Tammy Ledford. Conneaut City Council's new president will be former Police Chief John Arcaro, who served 1 2-year term on council several years ago. Over in North Kingsville, former Police Chief Hugh Flanagan withdrew a request last week to rezone property he owns on Route 20, where North Kingsville Elementary School once stood. The request to rezone the property to commercial, so Flanagan could attract a good buyer, he said, was extremely unpopular with the residents. They were surprised then when, during a special meeting on rezoning on October 23rd, Flanagan said he has plans for the property and he will announce them in January. At the same meeting, council had an emergency vote to award to Flanagan and his Affordable Roofing Company a contract to replace the roof on North Kingsville's municipal building. Only a no vote by Village Council members Tammy Andrew and Dexter Awe prevented the legislation from passing as emergency. It now must go 3 readings. Andrew and Awe are up for re-election on November 5th. Conneaut Port Authority expects the sandbar to be open next year if water levels on Lake Erie continue to recede, as predicted by the Army Corps of Engineers. Right now, levels are about 20 inches above normal, but they are going down. The Port Authority also talked at its October 24th meeting about plans to lease the former Hagstrom used car building on Welton Road. The Conneaut Foundation paid $75,000 for that building earlier this year, and because the Conneaut Foundation is in partnership with the Port Authority and the city, the Port Authority is expected to reimburse the Conneaut Foundation for half of that cost. The purchase happened at the request of City Manager Jim Hockaday, as that building had fallen into disrepair after it was sold by the Hagstroms to another used car dealer. Port Authority Chair Wally Dunn said that if it is able to get viable use for that building, namely a business to operate it and make a profit, the Conneaut Foundation may forgive the Conneaut Port Authority for half of that payment. Viable use is likely since the building sits directly across Mill Road from the new Indian Mound Metro Park. It would be the only commercial property along Conneaut Creek in the city limits. Last summer, a Pennsylvania business owner approached the Port Authority about opening a canoe kayak rental business at that site. Its proximity to the Metro Park trails and the Rainbow Bridge, which is a popular fishing spot, make it ideal as the southern gateway to city recreation areas all the way up to Lake Erie. In coming events, Conneaut Health Department will host a community flu clinic on Wednesday, October 30th at the Conneaut Human Resources Center at 327 Mill Street. Hours are 9 a.m. to noon and 1 to 3 p.m. Shots are $25 or free with Medicare Part B and many insurances. Insurance or Medicare cards must be presented. The health department also administers flu shots by appointment. You may call them at 593-3087. Orleans Broadway on Buffalo concludes stage performances of The Rocky Horror Show at 7:30 p.m. November 1st and 2nd and 2:30 p.m. Sunday, November 3rd at 236 Buffalo Street. The show is a modern spoof of Frankenstein, and it is not for children. Tickets are $10. Trick or Treat in Conneaut, Kingsville, and North Kingsville is 6 to 8 p.m. on Thursday, October 31st. In addition to going door to door, trick-or-treaters are being welcomed by many organizations, and considering the weather forecast for Halloween night, trick-or-treaters may want to take advantage of the indoor options. Good Shepherd Lutheran Church at Grove Street and Lake Road is hosting Trunk or Treat with games, activities, treats, Brandt's cider and donuts, hot dogs, chips, and a haunted house that will take place from 5 to 8 p.m. Halloween night. Villa at the Lake, 48 Parish Road, invites trick-or-treaters from 5 to 6:30 p.m. to come to the Villa, listen to spooky stories in the lounge presented by Conneaut Public Library, and then trick or treat through the residence halls. First Congregational United Church of Christ is hosting a Halloween hootenanny from 6 to 8 p.m. October 31st at Main and Buffalo Streets with treats, hot beverages, games, and a lot of fun. Conneaut Optimist Club at 518 Harbor Street welcomes trick-or-treaters and will serve free cider and donuts. North Kingsville Police Department is hosting Trunk or Treat at the Municipal Building on Center Street. They will have grilled hot dogs and hamburgers, with any monetary donations left going to the Ashtabula County Medical Center Foundation. Over in Kingsville, the Public Library and the Kingsville Fire Department will host Trick or Treat at the CIMAC Welcome Center and the Fire Hall, respectively. And of course, the Haunt on William Street will be open 7 to 11 p.m. October 25th through 31st at 585 William Street. This is a huge sound and light show that gets bigger every year. Donations are optional and go to the Conneaut Food Pantry. This is the Haunt's 29th year. William Street is typically closed to trick-or-treaters, closed to traffic during trick-or-treat hours, but if the weather is foul, check the Haunt on William Street Facebook page because it may not be open that evening. Make sure then that you visit sometime this week lest storms cancel the final night for Haunt on William Street on October 31st. The annual Veterans Lunch at the Conneaut Human Resources Center is Friday, November 1st, Beginning with 10 a.m. program, the speaker is Ben Schwartz-Figure, new director of the Ashtabula Veterans Commission. Veterans are free, and guest lunch is $5.50. Monroe Sirens Auxiliary's next homemade hoagie sale is noon to 8 p.m. on Friday, November 1st at 4095 Center Road. The hoagies are $4. This is the last hoagie sale of 2019. And craft fair season is underway. There are 2 local craft fairs this coming weekend. Saturday, November 2nd, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. at First Assembly of God, 389 West Main Road. There's also a craft fair at Conneaut High School, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Saturday, November 2nd, with concessions, face painting, and kids' activities, plus an early visit from Santa Claus. Villa at the Lake will host a craft fair from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. November 9th. The indoor farmers markets will be back from noon to 3 p.m. November 3rd and 17th at the Seniors Room of the Conneaut Human Resources Center at 327 Mill Street. Farmers markets are also going to be held the first and third Sundays in December. If you're interested in being a vendor at the farmers market, you may contact Samantha McNutt at 593-5273. Cleveland Food Bank's Produce to People distribution is 10 a.m. to noon on Monday, November 4th at the Conneaut Human Resources Center. Also, Ohio Representative John Patterson will greet constituents from 1 to 2:30 p.m., also on November 4th at the Conneaut Human Resources Center. And the Conneaut Veterans Day Parade will take place at 10:45 a.m. on Monday, November 11th. Finally, the Conneaut Optimist Club has announced that the 2019 Christmas Parade, Christmas Through the Eyes of a Child, will step off at 7 p.m. Friday, November 29th. If you'd like to enter a float or walking or marching unit, contact the Conneaut Human Resources Center at 593-5273. The following night, November 30th, is an alumni football game coming to Joslyn Field. Contact Chris Brecht for more details. That's it for this week. Until next week, this is Martha Sorahan saying so long.
Hi again, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Around the Town with Chuck. My name is Chuck Guglielmo, and today we are taping the show on Friday, October the 11th, and we are here at Joslyn Field getting ready for this big championship football game for District 10 Region 3 between the Conneaut Spartans and the visiting Northwestern Wildcats. And my guest before the game today is Travis Hayes. Travis, how you doing?
Good, Chuck. How are you doing?
Good to have Travis back in town. I caught up with Travis at the Perch and Pilsner Festival, and at that time I think you told me you were like 18 years away from Conneaut. Tell us where you were, and tell us how you liked it in wherever you were.
Yeah, it was 18 years we were gone. We got married in 2001 and went on a honeymoon and came back and left right from there. We went to Somerville, South Carolina, which is just outside Charleston. It's a great area. It's a real nice area. It's grown a lot since we've been there. And that's part of the reason why we came back. We got a junior that's at the high school, and we got a sixth grader also, and the schools down there had just gotten so big. The high school that our oldest was at had 3,200 kids, so it was just we just didn't like that feel. We didn't like the atmosphere. There's something to be said about the small town, growing up in a small town, and all the stuff that goes with that. So we decided to make the move back. It wasn't easy. It was a tough decision, but it's been working out. We got back in June, and both the kids are involved with sports and everything. So it's been a as far as the transition goes, it's been about as easy as it could be.
And the kids like being here?
Yeah, they do. We'll see you here in a couple of months when it's snowing. They've only experienced it once or twice, but they haven't really been in the cold a whole lot, so we'll see what they think a couple months from now.
Well, last winter we did pretty good with the snow. We didn't have much snow, but reports I'm getting about this year is another story. Travis, I don't know if you've caught the Spartans play at all this year, but if you have, what are your thoughts on the football team?
I have, yeah. I've been to 2 or 3 games, and it's nice. It's good to see them competitive. It's not like the old days where they play some of these county teams, so I think it loses a lot of the rivals that used to be back with the Edgewoods and Ashtabula's and all that stuff, but it's good to see them competitive and playing meaningful games at the end of the year, which is good. So I think the culture that I don't know Rocco all that well, but from what I see, the culture that he's created for the football team is pretty good.
If they got 4 regular season games left, if they can win 3 of the 4, they would have an 8-win season. And I looked back in the record books, they haven't had an 8-win season since 1992, and they've only had 2 8-win seasons. You got to go back to 1984. So quite an accomplishment, and Rocco is just an outstanding coach. And I couldn't be happier for them.
Yeah, it's tough too. I mean, I coached off and on for the last 20 years probably, and it's tough to coach these days. I mean, just with the kids and just there's so much other stuff going on in their lives, and it's tough to create a consistent culture, that's competitive every year. So he's obviously doing something right.
I thought about having you on, Travis. I heard you doing a podcast with some other guy named Guglielmo, and there was a lot of interesting things you said there that I want to talk about. But before we do, let's reminisce a little bit about that great basketball team that you were on in the mid-'90s. The big 3, of course, were Cox and Pape and Lyons, and then the big 2 I call coming off that bench were you and Steve Tharp. When you look back at that team, what was the biggest thrill for you?
Well, it's just the whole experience. It was Jason too, Jason Tharp, but I think you called him Steve. But it was just the experience, the whole way that the whole city got behind us was this. You watch the movie Hoosiers, and that's what it was. Just a small town, and the team brought the whole community together. If you didn't get to the game like 2 hours before the JV game, you weren't getting in. And all the younger kids would be there lined up asking for autographs and stuff. It was just a great experience.
Is there any one game back in that year that you guys went 20-0? Am I right? You went 20-0. Was there any one game that stood out in that regular season, not counting tournament, of course, that you can remember as your best game?
Well, my best game was probably in Jefferson, at Jefferson. I think I had maybe 5 threes or something like that. And we blew them out. Every game we played was 32-point. I think we averaged a 32-point margin of victory. So, but at Jefferson, I always played well at Jefferson for some reason. I don't know if the depth perception or something with the walls behind the hoop or what it was. But the game that always stands out is the Benedictine game that we got beat. I think you remember your losses more than you remember the wins, unfortunately. But that's the game that still wakes me up sometimes because. I had a turnover late in the game, and the Pape went down and fouled out, so that one still haunts me.
If I remember, that was Benedictine Bengals. Yeah. Wasn't it Chris Anthony who almost put it in at the buzzer?
It was. Dan Coxon had a little runner at the free throw line that missed and went left, and Chris had one kind of behind his head, a tip in late. It just didn't go in.
Mm-hmm. Talk to me about Kent Houston. What was it like playing for the feisty, never settled down coach?
Yeah, it was fun. That's kind of the same personality I had too, so it worked out well. But Coach was, I still call him Coach. And it was funny because when I did that podcast, you had Paul come up and Mikey D'Annunzio and Adam Lytle, and they still call me Coach. It's crazy. I was only 3 or 4 years older. and but they still call me coach. So I talk to Coach Howson often. We text back and forth quite a bit. So I mean, it went well for me. Like I said, I think we had a lot of the same personalities. So, but I enjoyed playing for him. He taught me a lot. Gave me a great opportunity too, right out of high school. I mean, he had me on his staff, and I mean, as an 18-year-old, I was coaching. So at the high school level. So I mean, it was great. It was great.
Talk to me a little bit about the stage crew, Travis, back then, because I've had out-of-town fans come and tell me that there's an automatic 10 points for the Conneaut Spartans, even though I don't agree with that because your team was so talented. But that stage crew, you had to hear them. They were just outstanding, were they not?
Yeah, they really were. And it is a big difference. It was intimidating, too. I mean, for the other team, it had to be intimidating to come in. That place the stage was packed. I went to a couple games last year before we moved up here, and it wasn't so packed. So hopefully we can change that a little bit and get some of that home court advantage back.
I remember a game against St. John, I believe it was. I don't know who made the first basket, but it was 2-0, and the stage crew was shouting, "This game's over." Do you remember that?
I do. Yeah, matter of fact, they would do that in warm-ups sometimes. So even before the opening tip. So a lot of cases it was true.
I can remember 3 outstanding basketball teams. Your team, of course, in the mid-'90s. Then I go back to '68-'69 team with the Jeff Puffers and Randy Adamax and Al Razum was another great team. And then the team 5 years right after you with the Dingers and the Bunnells and the D'Annunzios. Those are the 3 big teams that I look at as I was watching Conneaut baseball. But your team, and I'm not saying it because you're right next to me, I think is Dream Team 1 with the '68-'69 Dream Team 2, and then the team after you, Dream Team 3.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot. I think our team was unique. We had 9 seniors, and all of us could go off for 20. You know, yeah, we had the big 3 with Mike, Tony, and Danny that were the most talented players. But I mean, they all got theirs every night. But the rest of us, the other 6 of us, we could have 20. Any of us could have went for 20. So I don't think those other teams that you just mentioned they were good. I don't think they were as deep as what we were. I mean, 1 through 9, we could have. I mean, the 9 of us could be starting at any of the other teams in the county back. And there were some good teams back in when we were playing. Edgewood has some good players, and Harbor has some good players. But yeah, as far as just 1 to 12 or 15, whatever, I think our team probably from top to bottom was as talented as any of them.
A guy who didn't play much on that team, I think it was your team now, I hope I'm not making a mistake. I call him Joe Swiggy, Joe Swigunski. He didn't play much, but everybody loved him, including the team itself, right?
Right, yeah, Joe was he was a senior when we were all juniors. He was the only senior on the team. But he was a captain. We all voted him as a captain. He was there every day, worked hard in practice, and maybe not the most talented player, but he worked hard, worked his butt off, and it was a good kid. So, but yeah, he was a senior when we were all juniors.
And you coached, as you said, 7th and 8th grade boys basketball over at the middle school. I remember you coaching. Didn't you coach the team that won a championship, I believe? And one of your better players was Ben Hoffman. He was all over the floor that game.
Yeah. Ben hit a. I think where there was about 3.5 seconds left or something. We had to go full length of the court, and Ben took it out and hit a shot at the buzzer to win the championship against Geneva. So yeah, that was fun. That was a good group with Paul and all that, and that was the group that you mentioned with Dinger. I mean, they grew up. I mean, as they got the seniors, they were one of the best teams ever come out of here. So take pride in that. They were just a good group to work with. I mean, I didn't know anything, 18, 19-year-old kid or whatever I was, and they all respected me and did what I asked, and it was a good experience. Went to some team camps through the summer, had some good stories with Paul about that the other night, so, but yeah, those were good times.
What would you say, being so young, like you said, at 18, 19, coaching that team, you knew they had talent. What was your biggest challenge trying to put it all together?
Well, trying to teach the system was the biggest thing because, Coach Howson wanted everything from middle school all the way up to high school. He wanted everybody to run the same thing. And sometimes that stuff got, complicated for trying to teach to a 7th or 8th grader. It was good for juniors and seniors and stuff like that. So just trying to bring it down to their level a little bit. But we had those, by the end of the year, we had those guys, they were running everything that you saw at the varsity level. So that's a big, that's all on them, that they paid attention and listened and wanted to learn. So, I mean, just trying to get them up to speed with what Houston wanted was probably the biggest challenge.
Let's talk a little bit about today, playing the local teams which we don't play. A lot of controversy over that. It is a shame that we don't. This was the first time this year in football we played Edgewood in 4 years, and we had a packed house. What are your thoughts on, I guess, being forced to play Pennsylvania schools rather than these local teams, and why do you think the schools can't get together on this?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if it's money. I know being gone for so long, I didn't realize a lot of those. I knew the NEC of the old days was gone, but I didn't know. Not playing these local county teams, I didn't really know that until we got back here. So I don't know all the ins and outs. I'm not enough to comment on it anyway. But I sure would like to see. I was here for that Edgewood game, and it was packed. I mean, you had people tailgating out back and stuff. So it was a good environment, and you'd miss that, when you go and play teams from another state. I know it's only 15, 20 minutes away or whatever it is, but you don't have all that. These kids don't know them like they do the Edgewood, the Edgewood or Asheville is whatever it is. So, looking around, I don't see any reason why we can't be competitive as far as the competition is concerned. So I'm not sure what that is. That's probably a question. I saw Joel Taylor walk by. That's probably a question for him.
Oh, he's gotten that question many times.
Yeah.
We just don't like his answers.
I would like to see it. I would definitely like to see some of that old stuff come back. Jefferson, there is another conference. What do they call it? Is that the CVC or something?
CVC, there's a lot of schools in all kind of different conferences.
Right. Yeah, I don't know if it's possible, but I sure would like to get some of those games scheduled again.
Just this year alone, Conneaut football 5-1, Geneva football 5-1. Wouldn't it be nice to see those two teams play and how packed it would be?
Right. Yeah, it would be. And if it is about money, I think they would see, if it's about money, I think they'd make it up in ticket sales.
Yeah. Travis, one other thing I want to touch up, and we'll close with this. Also in the podcast, I heard you say that one thing that disappoints you a little bit is that your basketball team didn't get recognized. And I took that as another reason why I wanted to get you on, because you want to do something about it, and I want to help you do something about it. What do you have in mind?
Well, I don't know. There's never even been, to my knowledge, I don't think there's ever been an effort to recognize us. Maybe it's a little selfishness. I don't know what it is, but like I said, what we did for the community and what the community did for us. I think it should be recognized. I don't know if it's something you try to get the whole team back and recognize us at one of the games, one of the basketball games throughout the year or something. I don't know, but it's coming up. I believe it's going to be 25 years, right? 1995 is when I graduated, so it's time. Something. I know we're all spread out across the country. Danny's in Las Vegas, but there's a few I think Tony's in Columbus, Mike's in Cleveland, but I don't know if it could all come together this year. But I would definitely like to see something happen.
Yeah, I would too. I just recently caught up with Nick Pape and Tony Lyons. They were here this past spring for being elected into the Ashtabula County Basketball Hall of Fame. It would really be great to do something about it. Do you think your first step would be to go to the school board and talk about it?
That's a good question. Maybe I'll have to do that.
Well, if you do, I'll come along with you and have you do all the talking, and I'll sit back and listen.
I don't know if that'd be good or not, but we can certainly try.
Well, Travis, it's been great catching up with you. I'm going to see a lot of you during the basketball season because your son's going to play. What position does he play?
He's got the shooting guard mentality, but the point guard size. So kind of like me, really. He's a much better shooter than I ever was. We got to get him to play a little bit harder, but hopefully Coach Talbaka will get that out of him. But it should be good. Should be a good experience for him.
Well, good to hear you say he's a good shooter because just like Chip off the old block, or should I say he's taken after the old man.
That's it. Yeah, I am.
How's it feel to be called the old man?
I am the old man, 42. So.
I'm thinking when I interviewed you back then, I was your age.
You still do that?
Yeah, I was your age.
Were you really?
You're in your early to mid 40s?
I'm 42.
42, yeah. Well,
I'm glad you do that. That was another good experience, really. Just putting a kid in that situation, and getting them to talk is a good experience. Do you still do that? That's good?
Yeah, I do, and you always gave me good interviews. Matter of fact, that whole team gave me good interviews, and usually there were wins, too.
Right, yeah,
that kind of helps.
Yeah, it's easy to talk when you're winning.
Yeah. Well, Travis, thanks for being on the show. It was nice catching up with you, and like I said, we'll see you during basketball season.
Sounds good. Thank you for having me.
Travis Hayes, my guest today on Around the Town with Chuck.
Chuck, just
Thank you.